Chapter 7. Quillerin killed the cover story about the car dealer's remodeled stable and started to worry about finding a substitution. He had an appointment that morning with another decorator, but he doubted that she would be able to produce a cover story on short notice. He had talked with her on the telephone, and she had seemed flustered. "Oh dear," Mrs. Mitty had said. "Oh dear, oh dear." Quillerin went to her studio without any buoyant hope. The sign over the door, lettered in Spencerian script, said Interiors by Mitty. The shop was located near Happy View Woods, and it had all the ingredients of charm. Window boxes filled with yellow mums, bay windows with diamond-shaped panes, a Dutch door flanked by picturesque carriage lanterns, a gleaming brass door knocker. Inside, the cozy charm was suffocating but undeniable. As Quillerin entered, he heard Westminster chimes, and then he saw a tall young woman emerge from behind a louvered folding screen at the back of the shop. Her straight brown hair fell like a blanket to her shoulders, hiding her forehead, eyebrows, temples, and cheeks. All that was visible was a pair of roguish green eyes, an appealing little nose, an intelligent mouth, a dainty chin. Quillerin brightened. He said, "I have an 11 o'clock appointment with Mrs. Mitty, and I don't think you're Mrs. Mitty." "I'm her assistant," said the young woman. "Mrs. Mitty is a little late this morning, but then Mrs. Mitty is always a little late. Would you care to sit it out?" She waved a hand dramatically around the studio. "I can offer you a Chippendale corner chair, a comeback Windsor, or a mammy settle. They're all uncomfortable, but I'll talk to you and take your mind off your anguish." "Talk to me, by all means," said Quillerin, sitting on the mammy settle and finding that it rocked. The girl sat in the comeback Windsor with her skirt well above her knees, and Quillerin was pleased to see that they were leanly upholstered. "What's your name?" he asked, as he filled his pipe and lighted it. "Alicoque Wright, and you must be the editor of the new Sunday supplement. I forget what you call it." "Gracious Abodes," said Quillerin. "Why do newspapers insist on sounding like warmed-over Horace Greeley?" Her green eyes were kidding him, and Quillerin liked it. "There's an element of tradition in newspapering." He glanced around the studio. "Same as in your business." "Decorating is not really my business," said the girl crisply. "Architecture is my field, but girl architects are not largely in demand. I took this job with Mrs. Mitty in desperation, and I'm afraid these imitation worm-eaten hutches and folksy-hoaxy mammy settles are warping my personality. I prefer design that reflects the spirit of our times, down with French Empire, Portuguese colonial, and Swahili Baroque." "You mean you like modern design?" "I don't like to use the word," said Miss Wright. "It's so ambiguous. There's Motel Modern, Miami Beach Modern, Borax Danish, and a lot of horrid mutations. I prefer the 20th century classics, the work of Saarinen, Mies van der Rohe, Brewer, and all that crowd. Mrs. Mitty doesn't let me meet clients. She's afraid I'll sabotage her work. And I believe I would," she added with a feline smile. "I have a sneaky nature." "If you don't meet clients, what do you do?" "Renderings, floor plans, color schemes. I answer the telephone and sort of sweep up. But tell me about you. Do you like contemporary design?" "I like anything," said Quillerin, "as long as it's comfortable and I can put my feet on it." The girl appraised him frankly. "You're better looking than your picture in the magazine. You look serious and responsible, but also interesting. Are you married?" "Not at the moment." "You must feel crushed about what happened this weekend." "You mean the theft in Muggy Swamp?" Do you suppose Mr. Tate will sue the Daily Fluxion? Quillerin shook his head. He wouldn't get to first base. We printed nothing that was untrue or libellous. And, of course, we had his permission to publish his house in the first place. But the robbery will damage your magazine's image, you must admit, said Miss Wright. Just then, the Dutch door opened, and a voice said, "Oh dear, am I late?" "Here comes Mother Mitty," said the girl with the taunting eyes. The dumpling of a woman who bustled into the studio was breathless and apologetic. She had been hurrying, and wisps of gray hair were escaping in all directions from the confinement of her shapeless, mouse-gray hat. "Get us some coffee, dear," she said to her assistant. "I'm all upset. I just got a ticket for speeding, but the officer was so kind. They have such nice policemen on the force." The decorator sat down heavily in a black and gold rocking chair. "Why don't you write a nice article about our policeman, Mr. Quillerin, Jim Quillerin," he said. "I'm afraid that's not my department, but I'd like to write a nice article about you." Oh dear, said Mrs. Mitty, as she removed her hat and patted her hair. The coffee came in rosebud-covered cups, and Miss Wright served it with her eyebrows arched in disapproval of the design. Then the decorator and the newsman discussed possibilities for gracious abodes. "I've done some lovely interiors lately," said Mrs. Mitty. "Dr. Mason's house is charming, but it isn't quite finished. We're waiting for lamps. Professor DeWitt's house is lovely too, but the draperies aren't hung." "The manufacturer discontinued the pattern," said Quillerin. "Yes! How did you know?" She rocked her chair violently. Oh dear, what to do?" "The housing?" her assistant whispered. "Oh yes, we've just finished some dormitories for the university," Mrs. Mitty said, "and a sorority house for Delta Theta, or whatever it's called. But those are out of town." "Don't forget Mrs. Allison's," said Miss Wright. "Oh yes, Mrs. Allison's is really lovely. Would you be interested in a residence for career girls, Mr. Quillam? It shows what can be done with a boarding house. It's one of those turn-of-the-century mansions on Merchant Street, all very gloomy and grotesque before Mrs. Allison called me in." "It looked like a Victorian bordello," said Miss Wright. "I used crewel work in the living room, and canopied beds in the girls' rooms, and the dining room turned out very well. Instead of one long table, which looked so institutional, I used lots of little skirted tables, like a cafe." Quillerin had been considering only private residences, but he was willing to publish anything that could be photographed in a hurry. "What is the color scheme?" he asked. "The theme is cherry red," said Mrs. Mitty, "with variations. Upstairs it's all cherry pink. Oh, you'll love it! You'll just love it!" "Any chance of photographing this afternoon?" "Oh dear, that's too soon. People like to tidy up before the photographer comes." "Tomorrow morning, then?" "I'll call Mrs. Allison right away." The decorator bustled to the telephone, and Alicoque Wright said to Quillerin, "Mother Mitty has done wonders with the Allison house. It doesn't look like a Victorian bordello anymore. It looks like an early American bordello." While the arrangements were being made, Quillerin made an arrangement of his own with Miss Wright for Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock under the City Hall clock, and he left the Mitty studio with a lilting sensation in his mustache. On the way back to the office, he stopped at a gourmet shop and bought a can of smoked oysters for Coco. That evening, Quillerin packed his books in 3 corrugated cartons from the grocery store and dusted his 2 pieces of luggage. Coco watched the process with concern. He had not touched the smoked oysters. Quillerin said, "What's the matter? Dieting?" Coco began to prowl the apartment from one end to the other, occasionally stopping to sniff the cartons. and utter a long, mournful howl. "You're worried," Quillerin said. "You don't want to move." He picked up the cat and stroked his head reassuringly, then placed him on the open pages of the dictionary. "Come on, let's have a good rousing game to chase away the blues." Coco dug his claws into the pages half-heartedly. "Balance and bald," Quillerin read. "Elementary. 2 points for me. I'll have to try harder." Coco grabbed again. "Kohistani and Kulokamba." Quillerin knew the definition of the first, but he had to look up Kulokamba. "A West African anthropoid ape, with the head nearly bald and the face and hands black," he read. "That's great. That'll be a handy addition to my everyday vocabulary. Thanks a lot." At the end of 9 innings, Quillerin had won, 14-4. For the most part, Coco had turned up easy catchwords like rook and root, frame and frank. "You're losing your knack," Quillerin told him, and Coco responded with a long, indignant howl.